Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Elka, and if this is the first time joining this podcast, welcome. We usually do these together, but because of COVID and restrictions and colds and whatever, Jen and I have been doing some one-offs on our own. But Jen is always here in spirit, and when she's doing hers on her own, then obviously I'm there in spirit as well. So today, what I want to talk to you about is how to overcome the fear of starting your own online business. And yeah, you may be asking, like, is that even a real thing? And yes, it is. It's so hard to make that transition because we want to move from, basically, we want the business, we want the income, we want that lifestyle, and we're almost like jealous of people who've done it. Why? Because it's so hard for us to envision it ourselves, right? And it's a big change. It moves you from, in some cases, a worker to an entrepreneur who's does everything on their own, and like they still have to work, but they also have to make all the decisions. Ooh, that's a tough one, right? And so today in this episode, I want to really help you identify what those fears are, because I don't want you to make that decision and procrastinate and never get started, right? Because what the potential is when you face your fears and even ask if those fears are real fears, and then actually work through them, which is we're doing some hard work today. So stay with me, 'cause it's going to be good, I promise. Then you're going to realize it wasn't as bad as you thought. Okay? It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be only fun. It's never going to be there's never going to be like places where you're going to fail or things aren't going to go your way. That's always going to be part of any business. It even happens within your job if you're on a 9-to-5 job, or you've had maybe another business already where you were part of something but you weren't really in charge. Or even if you were in charge, maybe this is going to help you. Like if you were running, like, let's say an Etsy business or Amazon or Shopify business, this could be for you, especially if you're not feeling so great about it. It's not giving you what you want. There may be still some fears that we have to help you overcome to allow you just to fully step into your business and show up 100 or 1,000% so that you can make it work for you. So I'm so excited to be able to help you with this today. But the episode is geared a lot towards someone who's just moving from, that comfortable, cushy life of just show up for work, do your job, get paid, to, oh my gosh, I have to do all of this on my own, and do I ever get paid? And I have to, it's all my responsibility for getting paid, right? And that's a huge transition initially. And so therefore it can really set in a lot of things in motion that are going to stop you from moving forward. Even though you said you want to do it, you're so excited, you set goals, and then crickets, right? Because you're almost paralyzed. And the reason you're paralyzed is because your brain is now going like, this is not safe. I want to make sure that you're safe, and all these things I'm like not sure about. So I'm going to create my fear and anxiety and doubt as to whether or not this is the way to go, because I don't know what this looks like, right? That's your brain talking to you. And they're very valid fears, because that comes from the sort of bottom lower part of your brain, where it's the sort of, if you believe in that, the caveman side of things, where we didn't know any better. We didn't have the logic front at the back saying like, don't worry, it's okay. We're still working on safety above all, right? Because we want to survive. And so when we feel something new coming up and we see others doing it and it seems so exciting, and yes, you want to get out of your day job, or you want a better life where you're with your family and you're taking care of your kids and you don't want to go back to work even though you loved your work, whether you hated or loved it, or you would rather have more time, or you have a ceiling of income that you've hit and you want to make it higher, and then because you want to retire early or whatever. All of these things mean, first of all, a transition, right? And they say that the scariest things in life and the things that are most difficult to deal with are the changes in life, right? Especially, new relationship, a birth, a death, a moving, a new job. And so a new business is right there with it. It's a new job. And what we want to do, though, is help you realize that by adding that extra layer, that it's also your job that you're creating for yourself in your own business, which adds even more pressure, that it's still going to be a good journey for you, because you're going to find out what fears are truly real fears and what fears are just there that are like, making you more reason to believe the backside of your brain that is telling you don't do anything new, it's not going to be good. And we want the logic to take over, because the logic started the whole process, right? The logic said, I want a different life. I want my dream life, and I think this is the way to go because I've done the work. And if you watch episode 76 or listen to episode 76, or just gave you the framework to help you logically look through a business and make those decisions logically so that you can really feel comfortable moving forward, but you're still going to end up having these fears. So it was really good planning on my part to make these in succession so that you have this as a backup, because initially you start with the logic, then the back of your brain's going to overpower you again, like, yeah, are you sure? Right? And so today, those are you sure is generating the fear. And so today in the podcast, I'm going to go over how to overcome those fears, or if they truly are real fears, not succumbing, overcome, then those real fears, we overcome them, right? And I'll give you some help and pointers. So let's get started. So first we're going to do a little exercise. And the thing that we're going to do is, if you've ever heard, just Google fear inventory. I've tried to do that and find specifically who was the first to set this up, but a lot of people use this fear inventory process when you're dealing with some sort of abuse or addiction, addiction or abuse of like alcohol or drugs, not physical abuse. That's different. But the idea here is that what is it that's letting you not move forward out of your comfort zone, right? And as I said, so I didn't want to bring in like sobriety questionnaires and things like that in here. So I created a little bit of a version of my own to help you take the essence of what this fear inventory is, so that you can build on it and help you understand and define your fears more clearly and see where they place, right? Because that's the whole point. Are they real fears, or are they fears that we have created because of our story and our situation? And if that's the case, then we can easily overcome them. And then the ones that are real are more than likely just your to-do list, right? And so that switches it from I don't know what to do, anxiety, overwhelm, procrastination, self-sabotage, to, well, these are real and they're good points. Let's fix them, or let's address them, or no, this is just something I'm making up in my head because the real fear is about 20 fears down. And so I had to work through it to get to the real fear. And then the real fear, yes, I'm going to address that and I'm going to move forward because I still want to do this business because I think I can overcome this fear. So that's what we're going to do. That's what I want you to say by the time you're done this. And obviously you're not going to do it just on the podcast. So I want to hear from you afterwards. Message us anywhere, message us on Instagram or on Facebook, or send us an email, anywhere where you feel comfortable contacting us. And I want to hear what you've done with this. And I want to hear, did it work for you, or are you stuck? Well, because we can help you. This is not an easy process, right? And sometimes it requires guidance. And what I'm doing here is giving you like an insight as to what we do in our coaching programs, whether that be the Profit by Design Academy or in the Creative Entrepreneur, the Creative CEO Mastermind. And so unfortunately, it takes like a coaching part of this, but I'm going to give you as much as I can without the coaching, and coaching you here is on the podcast is at least a start, right? Okay, so the first thing you're going to do, and grab a pen and pencil, or pen or pencil and paper, and if you want to write it in your journal, that's great, but we are going to rip the paper up. And what you need to do is understand that even though you want to keep the list of the fears, what I want you to do initially is rip those up, because there's a part of the fear inventory. I just hit the mic, sorry. A part of the fear inventory process that allows you to actually like physically ripping up the paper signify that really those aren't really important fears. you can like just toss them away, right? And so that's part of it. But my version of it, my adaptation, is that I want you to get to the ones that keep coming up afterwards. So as we move through the process, I'm going to at some point also let you journal about the ones that never go away. Okay, so here's the way it goes. So first of all, you're going to do this over at least a week, if not 2 weeks. Okay, so this is a daily process that you're going to do for about 10 minutes a day. And what you're going to do is you're going to list your objective that you want to accomplish, right? And so the objective is starting an online business, right? That's where you're stuck, right? Or if you're already on the Zazzle platform or you have your own online business, maybe you want to have a different goal that says scale my online business, right? And if you want to be more specific, you could say get to a 6-figure online business, whatever it is. But be a little bit specific, like start or scale, or if you want to be more specific about the scaling, then say a certain amount, even if you want to do it by a certain date, right? That could be in there as well. So it's a very solid, specific goal. And then that's what you put at the top of your sheet. If you want to get a little bit more creative, there's sayings that you can do, like, dear highest power, dear universe, dear God, you can say, that I am truly grateful and thankful for achieving this goal, whatever. But I don't want to get into that really, because I just want you to really focus in on not worrying about whether you agree with, higher power and leaving it to the higher power. I just want you to, at this point, and this is actually weird for me to say because I believe in all that stuff, but I want you to just put in at the very top of your sheet what the goal is, right? And it's going to stare you in the face. Like, forget like all the words around it. I want you to just have this goal, and it'll just like come up. It'll make you have a deep, deep, deep fear of it because you're seeing it on paper. Okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to write out 20 fears, 20 minimum. You can stop after 20 of it becoming a reality. Okay? So it can be anything from I won't have time. Like literally some of the fears are feelings, but others are roadblocks, or like you don't have the training, or you've never done a business like this before, or I don't have the time, I don't think I'll be able to commit, I'll be worried about people talking about, and I'm going to give you some more examples later, but that kind of thing. So I'm going to stop at the examples here, continue to stay with me on the podcast, and come back to me if you're multitasking, because this is super, super important. I've done this, and fears that I thought were fears, totally believed them, totally thought this was the way that I was having a problem, weren't fears at all. Because what you're doing with the 20 is that you're actually bringing it closer and closer to the ones that really matter, but you have to get it all out of your head, right? And so it's like a brain dump. So starting your online business, or scaling your online business, or something more specific as your objective at the top. Then you give yourself hopefully 10, 15 minutes at the most to write down. It's just a brain dump. It's not a story. It's like lines, quick lines. This is what I'm afraid of. Lack of this, fear of that, won't be good enough, da da da. And so it's a new thing for blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to read them out loud again. If you do the proper fear inventory, there's a bit more to it because we're leaving it to the universe. And you're also doing this really cool exercise where you have to read it out loud to somebody. But you can only do that with me in my the Creative CEO Mastermind. And we may do it in the Profit by Design Academy if you're in before I get to do it with you. But then it's too bad, if you don't come in time. But the idea here is to give you a condensed version, okay? So you're going to read them out loud to yourself, and what you're going to do, instead of having someone else listen to them and say thank you for your honesty, which is what we do, then and it's very powerful, even though it just seems so simple. But I want you to put a check mark beside each one that you truly believe. When you read them out loud again to yourself out loud, then I want you to put a check mark beside them that you really truly feel are still resonating, and then you're going to cross out the ones that you don't feel so, hot about. It's like, oh no, I actually don't feel that, much fear about that one, but I thought it was a fear, right? So you're basically like calming your list. And so you've also reiterated the fears that came viscerally. And then what you're going to do is you're going to rip that piece out of your journal if you've got it as a journal writing, or you're going to use your blank piece of paper and rip it up. Okay? The next day, repeat. And the next day, repeat. The next day, repeat. And what you're going to do is by the time you get to maybe week 1, end of week 1, I want you to journal on the ones the fears that are constantly coming up. And I want you just to list them. Don't have to give why or whatever. Just list them. Okay? And then do it the week after again. And then the second week also have a second journal entry and list them again. Whatever's coming up in the second week, okay? And then you do the hard work and you look at all of the journal entries that you've had that you didn't rip up, that are listing the fears that you find they're continuing to crop up and don't seem to disappear, okay? And so at that point, you're going to start doing the work. And what we can do, I'll let you know in the podcast a little bit later what you can do with that. But first, I just want to give you some more examples of what it is that you might hone in on, okay? And that are real fears. And you're more than, like, if you hit these, then don't, try and wish them away, or they're real. And what we need to do is address them, okay? So examples of real fears are fear of lack, a fear of lack of anything, right? A lack of a lack of unknown, right? So it's a lack of knowledge, a lack of experience, a lack of social proof, a lack of personal proof. And what I mean by social proof is maybe you don't have enough people that we've talked about that you resonate with, and you go like, well, that's great for Brandon and Christine, which are some of our top earners, but it's not going to work for me, right? So if you're feeling that kind of fear, then it's a real fear. And then if it's personal proof, whereas, I've never done anything like this before, or I'm, how is this possible? I've always just worked 9 to 5, or I've never had a business, or I've never worked in a business, so I don't have any personal proof that it's possible. So that's a real fear and definitely worth addressing. Anything to do with support, right? Like when I first started, they all thought I was crazy, right? I had a PhD, a lot of training, and I gave up all of that, like years of education, to start an online business. They all thought I was absolutely nuts. And then on top of it, they started wondering when I was finally going to fulfill that goal that I had. And so they were putting a lot of pressure on me. So there was no support, absolutely none. And I was feeling guilty and worthless and very embarrassed and so on. And so if you don't have that support, of course you're going to fear that, right? And the judgment that comes along with that, because the people around you who you want them to love you and respect you for what you would do and what you say are the ones that are going to judge you the most, right? And even if they're nice and they don't judge you, you feel you create that judgment for yourself. And so again, those are all, it's lack of confidence, right? And lack of clarity as to what's happening. So those are really, really important fears that we need to address and you need to do the work on. The other one that's really blew me away initially was the fear of success. So this is for someone who is actually whether you're brand new or it's someone who has done really well even on the Zazzle platform already or anything else in any other business, and you get really scared of being able to repeat it, right? So either can I make it work, or if I've made it work, can I repeat it? And what it needs to, there's so many things at a personal level of the fact that you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself in terms of being able to succeed at this goal that you've created with no idea really how to get there at this point, except for the excitement of others doing it. And you've heard so much about it and you want to do it too. And, you hear stories about people who may have done it and they have, more obstacles than you do. And so you think you can make it work, but then you start to get nervous about continuing that success or doubting your success, right? Which are all the fears that come up because you're not feeling as confident as you should be in order to be able to move forward. And so that's a big fear and very real. Then dealing with the extra money that comes from it, or the perception of others when you have that money. And the most incredible, interesting things come up here, which are very personal, very true, and you have to deal with them. So, for example, if you've never had a lot of money and then you start making money, or there's a potential for you to make a lot of money, then it can be very scary because you may not feel that you have the ability to be responsible with that money, right? Or how will it change you as a person, or how will other people feel about you, and or are other people going to change how they deal with you? Maybe they start to become one of these people that says, well, you have enough money, so now you can support the family. That's happened many times, and it's really scary because you can be in the position of your family dynamic right now, but then if you start making money, others might be expecting things from you. Right? That's tough. That might be incredibly hard to deal with, especially if you love your family and you don't want to ruin the dynamics, but you've actually been put into a spot where once you start making money, something's expected of you, and maybe you don't want that, right? You want to finally do it for yourself and create a financial wealth for you going forward. And so a lot of money issues there that are real fears that we can help you address, obviously, if you want. But if not, then go and find that help for yourself so that you can address those, because they are real fears. Then fear of losing your social circle and your family due to the change. So the money aspect is one for sure, but it could just be also that you're growing as a person, right? And you're learning and speaking in a language that others don't understand anymore. Maybe you're the only person in your family or friend circle that is now an entrepreneur. And that's a lonely existence if no one else gets what you're saying or how, what's important to you. And also how it gets interpreted, right? When I was running around the house going like, I made 29 cents, they all thought I was nuts. There's a lot of nuts going on, like in terms of like people thinking I was crazy. And then my mom, bless her soul, she always said, are you okay? Is this really going to be okay? Can you still get your old job back? Right? And so you're going to get a lot of pressure like that. So of course it's a real fear that you're going to fear that, right? That losing that social circle, because people will either they'll be excited for you and curious about what you have to say and how you're moving forward in your journey. Those are the keepers. So you definitely want to stick around those people, whether they're family or friends. But if they start to judge you and go like, ooh, maybe you shouldn't do that, or, are you sure this is the right thing? Or like, that's a judgment. And if they do that and say that, it's not because they don't believe that you're capable. It's that they're scared because you're doing something that they don't know, and they haven't been interested or curious about how this is going to affect you and what it's all about, right? They're not willing to grow with you. And so, yeah, you do actually lose people to some degree, or you lose them for a while and they come back. Right? So that's one of the things that happen. If you stick with a community like our Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Facebook group, where we are all like-minded entrepreneurs, then you get that support, right? People talk in your language. You get to share your 29-cent, first sale wins, and people will be thrilled. They'll think you won the $1 million, right? They'll jackpot. Whereas if someone else said it to you, like, well, that's not a business model that you can sustain and grow. And it's like, yes, it is, because like Elka did it. So many other people are doing it. So it's just they don't understand the full picture, and they're doing their best to keep you safe, right? But their ignorance of not knowing what to do because they haven't been curious and asked the questions is basically making them react in a way that doesn't help you and support you. And so, yes, those fears are real. But what I would say in that case, and I am diverting a little bit from the main piece here, is because this is a biggie for me, is that respect and honor their opinion, but don't use it as the advice that you need to use to figure out your life, because you have made that decision. You've done the logic and the expert, you've done the pieces that are important so that you're not just going in this blindly. And now you've decided it's going to happen, and you're going to get the help you need to be the most successful you can in the shortest time possible. And so you're set, and you haven't just sort of done this on a whim. And so it's the others that have to catch up with you, right? Okay, and so if you need help with any of that, then there's programs that we have. You can also contact us individually, and then we can say, hey, you'd be perfect fit for this or whatever. But this gives you a really good insight as to how you can deal with some of these things. What are the real fears? And if others popped up, I didn't obviously list every single fear, but in the end, what you're going to do is you're going to actually look at those 2 lists that you created in week 1 and week 2. And if these fears that I just talked about are on there, then definitely you need to address those because they're real. But anything else that comes up, you're going to have to make your own decision as to, is it a real one, or is it something that's deeper and actually ties back to some of the ones that I listed. And then you're going to come up with your final fear list. And we're not going to rip these up. What we're going to do is face them head on, right? And what you're going to do is you can, gain knowledge and training in the unknown, right? So that you can overcome that lack. You're going to be able to get the support you need if you want, so you can transition, and people that can guide you. And yes, we have a lot of free information, but you also have the paid information and guidance and coaching that you can have access to if you're really serious about working through these problems, right? And then the next thing you can do is dive deeper into why success would make you self-sabotage and work through your money blocks. Okay, so those are things you can do for anything to do with fear of success. Then for fear of dealing with extra money or perception that others might have, you can educate yourself as to what your money blocks are and practice forming good habits about and around money so that you can treat money differently than what created those weird money blocks or fears or impressions of what money is, because money is just a tool. Right? If someone said tomorrow that, and this might actually happen, oh my gosh, with all the digital currencies, if someone said tomorrow, all your money is worthless, we're now doing digital, it's just a tool, right? It's the way of communicating right now. I value this service for this much of that, digit, right? And so, and then what you do is you use that amount of money for certain things, right? It's going to get you time to retire so that you don't have to get a job, and you can just use the income that's coming in to pay for the services around your house, to pay the taxes, to pay the mortgage, or the debt, pay down the debt, or go on a trip or whatever. Those are all the services that you're pushing that money back to that person that's giving you the service, right? And so that's what you're doing. You're going to provide a service, and you're going to expect a certain amount back because that's your worth, right? You're more than happy to pay everybody else, but you're not willing to accept that worth yourself because of the way you've been trained and brought up. And so there's huge work to be done there, but it's not something that will be blocking you forever. And so you can overcome that fear for sure. All right. And then also, if you want to, there's also good habits around keeping money, investing money, and using money more wisely, and getting your money to work for you so that you can continue to build, and it's not just a matter of spending it all, right? And that will allow you to create what's called generational wealth. And it just changes the concept of how you are looking at your Zazzle business, because initially you were looking at it as a way to get a monthly paycheck, or cash flow, right? Whereas what I look at it now as is as generational wealth. I have such a core business set up that even if I don't work at it, I get paid out. So if something happens to me, you can actually, this is your property, your business on the Zazzle marketplace. I've actually had lawyers from estates contact me and ask me how to continue creating, doing the Zazzle work so that they can continue to grow and scale the asset that was left behind from someone who passed away, who was an owner of a Zazzle business. And don't forget that it's kind of like stocks in the money market, or like money market or stocks, or if you bought a house, you have a Zazzle business, which is a valuable asset. And the more you build the business, the greater the asset, and it can become generational wealth, because your future generations can pick it up and continue growing it. And so when you change that perspective of how this becomes a money machine rather than just a cash flow for stuff, then it changes your perception, and it makes your fears go away in terms of the desperate, oh, I need to make this much money to pay my rent, to I could build this into a wealth generating tool. And also, like, as I said, like, the dollar could all of a sudden be told to us to, like, we can have someone tell us tomorrow, we're no longer working in dollars, we're working in, Bitcoin, which is something that I hope doesn't happen, but it's just a tool, right? So and some Polynesian islands, it's yellow rocks. And so it's just a unit of currency in exchange for something else. So I know I went on a bit of a long-term tangent there, but I really want you to understand that the fear of money is so crucial to overcome in order for you to successfully succeed in this business, in any business. And it's a passion of mine, because I've had to do this work myself, and it changes everything. Okay. So, and the last one with the fear of losing your social circle and your family. Unfortunately, the hard fact is, if you are losing people along the way, they weren't actually meant to be on your journey with you. You just can still be friends with them and do things with them. It's just that they won't be on your journey with you and supporting you. You have to find that support somewhere else, and they actually could influence you negatively. So at this point, you would just say, okay, well, that's no longer a topic of conversation that I need, like, that I'm going to have with this person, because it's not serving me, right? And so that's an easy one. It's maybe not that easy to take to carry out, but you'll find that it's less stressful on you if you are just creating those boundaries with those people that are creating that negative space for you, rather than you dealing with that negative space all the time. As much as you'd want them to be as involved and come along for the journey with your success, it's so sad that it's not a possibility for some of these people. Just keep moving forward. They might come around after. And I say again, this experience is a personal experience, because that's what happened with my husband. Initially, it was all about money, money, money. And then, unfortunately, afterwards, when I made the money, that's when he finally said, wow, this business is awesome. And it's like, well, but for 4 years, 5 years, you didn't think this business was good at all. And that's a lot of time during which I was receiving negative information, right? And it just took everything that I had in my core to keep pushing forward. So if you can surround yourself with more positive support rather than the negative, I highly recommend that. Okay. All right. So that takes care of that. And so again, I want to just let you go in the show notes to really see the process for how you can do this fear inventory, modified fear inventory that I've created for you, so that it's easier, and for you to actually establish what are real fears. And obviously in this process, the ones that aren't real fears, if you truly find that that's the case, you can put them to bed, right? So you're going to feel really great after this. And any fears that you do have that are real, you're going to address them, and you're going to feel great. It's a lot of work. It might not be so fun to start with, but you're going to feel so much better. Your shoulders will go down, your stress level will go down, and you'll just kind of walk around with more confidence, because you go like, okay, I've done the work, and life doesn't have to be perfect, but it's not going to stop me from moving forward and seeing how this business, whatever that is, hopefully it's Zazzle, is going to give me that dream life that I want to have, that I'm willing to work for, and that I'm not going to let anything stand in my way, especially fear. Okay, so thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode next week. Take care.